everybody to the 103rd annual meeting for the Village of Hobart. If I could ask Bob Readers to start on the Pledge of Allegiance, can I lead us in that?
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you for that, Bob. We appreciate it. I will not be standing behind the microphone for all of the presentations speaking. I will probably get out while my voice carries enough. But to start off with introductions, and again, I want to thank everybody who came here tonight. This is really one of the rare, I guess, opportunities. We're looking for more outlets to interact with the community and all of its residents. But this is really one of the rare opportunities where the elected folks and the village staff get to kind of get up in front of you and we get to interact. And I know it's something that the village board really values, and I know I do as the administrator and our staff does. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Vickers. I serve as your village administrator, and I've been doing that for about 2 years now. I've been with the village for a total of 3 years in June. I really value my time here. I really think it's a really wonderful community. And we have a great group of people here that serve you folks. And they're very dedicated to what they do here. So with that, I have brought a compliment to my wonderful staff, and I'd like to introduce them right now. We have from, I guess, your left to the right, Police Chief Randy Bonnie, Fire Chief Bob Vandehei, our outside legal counsel Frank Kolakowski, Public Works and Utilities Coordinator Rick Kinney, and Community Development Tribal Affairs Director Elaine Wilman. Down on the end we have Director of Neighborhood Services Alan Danhoff. And of course, probably the more familiar faces for you folks. Tell me there's not a fire here. Okay. And then probably the familiar faces for you folks. Your village board, starting with Dave Billenberg, Ed Kazin, Debbie Schumacher, and Donna Severson. Dave and Donna were re-elected at the past election. Rich Heidel could not be here tonight, and he would probably give a very both evocative and emotional speech that I will not do. I've actually heard that my part of the presentation is not why you're here, that is the boring part, although it's the one that affects your pocketbook, so I kind of don't understand that, but I understand. I'm the one that has to deal with that stuff. I like it, so we both don't. We would like to recognize, before we get on to the more formal presentation, one of our employees, one of our staff who will be leaving, and I'd like to invite Debbie up here to recognize Rick Kinney.
The Village of Hobart Resolution of Appreciation. Resolution 2011-07. Resolution of Appreciation of Rick Kinney's service to the Village of Hobart. Whereas Mr. Rick Kinney has faithfully served his duty as a member of the Hobart Public Works Department for the past 13 years. And whereas Mr. Rick Kinney has served the public of Hobart in a diligent and commendable manner for the duration of his years of service. And whereas much improvement in the Public Works Department and his services to the Hobart public as a direct result of Rick's time and effort. And whereas Rick's vast knowledge of public water and sewer utilities has been a tremendous asset to the village residents. And whereas Rick's personality and willingness to always treat people with respect and willingness to be a team player will be sorely missed. Now, therefore, be resolved, the Village of Hobart, the Village Board of the Village of Hobart, Brown County, Wisconsin, does hereby extend sincere gratitude to Mr. Rick Kinney for his service to the Village of Hobart Public Works Department and his dedication to the entire community. The board wishes to express appreciation for the commitment of the time Rick has dedicated towards making the Village of Hobart a better community. Thank you very much.
tomorrow is Rick's last day for anybody who has a snow plowing complaint or would like to, just lots of any other concerns about the Public Works Department. Give one more parting shot to Rick, because I know he really enjoyed it. I know he really enjoyed as much as he enjoyed the April 19th snow.
He did Tuesday.
Yeah. I guess we'll get on the boring part of the presentation as a I didn't have my clicker on me, so I'm going to go over here and get it. But again, I just want to welcome everybody. It's very good to see such a nice turnout, and I do want to apologize to those folks who are skipping their Holy Thursday service, which is probably none of you. And I don't mean to make you feel guilty if you are, but we did kind of have an oversight there on the scheduling. So for those who wanted to be here, let them know we extend our regrets for that scheduling error. And we're going to maybe reshape this a little bit next year. Tonight's lineup, we got through the greetings and introductions. I'm going to go through very briefly the finance and budgetary information of the village. And then we'll have a briefing from our public safety officials and our community development and tribal affairs director. And then from what I've heard, the interesting part of the show is our legal briefing. So that's kind of the lineup. The village recently, I believe, the second meeting in April, maybe the first meeting in April, did kind of approve its first mission statement. And that's in your program also for your parting gift, so to speak. But I think one of the things that we had discussed is core organizational values and a mission statement, and we've kind of began to formalize a little more organization internally. By doing that, one of the ways to do that is to establish this mission statement, core organizational values, and we also have established a customer service program that kind of establishes some benchmarks for us to be able to better serve you and better measure how we respond to complaints, how we return phone calls, how we do a variety of things. And I won't spend too much time on that, but we're going to put that stuff on our website. So go out there and take a look at that. For the finance and budget portion of the presentation, I want to go over very briefly where we are. One of the comments we received in years past in doing this is that, we're talking about the past budget and it's, into the first quarter. Our challenges don't, lie behind us, they lie before us, especially budgetarily. With the state's proposed budget. So we're going to spend a little time on kind of current or past financial conditions, and then we're going to look forward. We're going to talk a little bit about, as I mentioned, the proposed state budgetary impacts on the village's budget. We're going to talk about water rate study and the results of rate reduction options that we've been examining at the committee level. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Green Bay Met. They treat our sewerage and some of the things they have in the works for the coming years. So we'll get through all this very quickly, and I'm going to go through these initial slides very briefly because we want to get to the main portion of the show, and that's interacting with you folks, really. Just very briefly, and this is a slide that we have kind of brought back year by year because it's important to us for you to know this. The village, I know all of us know this, but the village doesn't retain every dollar that you pay on your property tax bill. In fact, the village only retains roughly 20%, depending on which school district, 21% of your tax bill. And before the state income tax credit for this current budget that we're in, that was about $630 of a $150,000 home, so an average, a moderately valued home. Well, $630 that funds the village's operations. Note the Pulaski School District, this illustrates residents in Pulaski, is about 46%, and then the county and the state and the other overlying jurisdictions as well. Very similar graph for those served by West of Pier School District. Same kind of thing. I just want to highlight that for you folks. The current budget that we're in, the distribution of the property tax levy is such, and I'll just leave it up there. It really speaks for itself. We have our breakdown of our budget, our general fund, our debt service fund, capital improvements, and then some utility subsidy and those kind of things. Moving forward, the proposed state budget is probably unlike any other that we've faced in recent time anyway, definitely in my time doing this. The proposed state budget gives cuts to shared revenue that local governments and school districts rely on for their operations. We've probably all been hearing a lot about this recently. The village's shared revenue is kind of broken down, probably informally. We break it down as general shared revenue, transportation aid, and the recycling grant we receive. The general shared revenue will be reduced by $42,000. That's 50% from the funding we've experienced in this current budget. General transportation aids will be reduced by $34,000, about 15%. Both of those, the 50% and the 15%, were the maximum reductions allowed underneath the new formula in the proposed budget. So, kind of got whacked, to be honest with you, as worst as we could. I don't wish anybody to go out and try to decipher the shared revenue formula. It's not really understandable. To kind of get back the budget repair bill and the future state policy is that the public employees will contribute 5.8% of their retirement. We've been hearing a lot about this too. Unfortunately, though, those savings fall short of the shared revenue cuts. In fact, only about 31% of the general fund cuts are made up with the shared revenue reductions, or excuse me, the WRS savings from the employees. So there's a little bit of a gap to fill there moving forward. Additionally, we're beholden to levy limits of 0%. There's some exemptions to that, but for all intents and purposes, it's 0% increase from the previous year for property taxes, reliance on the property tax. Some strategies that we're going to be dealing with to overcome these in the coming months, even over weeks, is a debt restructuring and a pay down of some outstanding debt we have. We're going to examine some of our capital fund expenditures, and we're going to look probably at our examination of our fee schedules. Now, I should caveat this with that's just kind of the staff determination at this point. These folks will have other ideas on the ways to save money also. Another portion of the budget or fund we have is the water utility fund, and we placed a lot of work into this the last year and a half. Last August, the village undertook its first water rate study in over 10 years. And when we plugged in all of our expenses to the Public Service Commission, who really manufactures or engineers the rates for utilities in Wisconsin, nobody, including the board, including the residents and the staff, liked the output. So the village board passed a resolution at the rate hearing for that to say, okay, we're going to implement this in 2 steps. Phase 1, we're going to kind of come current with costs and inflation over the 10 years. We didn't have a rate study or a rate increase. But we wanted to lay phase 2 to find some solutions. So through the committee work, we've adopted recently at the board level a rate reduction strategy. Phase 2 as originally proposed, and this is for an average residential consumption per quarter. This would be like a total bill at 18,750 gallons. Was the highest in all of Brown County, and in a larger cross-section was one of the highest in northeastern Wisconsin. Not acceptable to anybody. The selected alternative we have, and I'm not going to go into too many details, I'll be able to answer some questions for you, and there's a lot of information on our website also, that the board selected, reduce the overall impact from what was proposed to you folks who are water users, about 46–47%. And put us up, not even better stead in all of northeastern Wisconsin, but put us back near the middle of the Brown County communities as well. And that's really what we desire, where we desire to be, somewhere average, as average as possible. Now, I guess some concerning news is with our sewer utility, another fund of the village. GBMSD, or the Green Bay Metropolitan Sewerage District, treats our sewage. they pass on costs to us through rates. We have to have rates from you folks to accommodate those increases. They're experiencing a lot of capitally intensive projects that are kind of been delayed, to be honest with you. And I know that's a little hard to read, but we're experiencing, or they're anticipating double-digit rate increases the next 5 years. So something we're going to keep a pulse on, but something that may impact you folks eventually down the road here too. That's the boring portion of the presentation. I don't know if Randy's going to spice it up anymore, but we'll really try to maintain that. I'd like to introduce Randy Bonney, the Hobart Lawrence Police Chief again, and he's going to give you a very brief, more brief than I, presentation.
Good evening, everybody. I actually had 3 pages, but Andrew told me I could only read one. Don't put the residents through that, so I'm down to 1.
Okay.
Thank you. Last year, this is for 2010, we had 5,629 calls for service. We worked 231 accidents, 5 fatals involving 6 deaths. In grants, we're working right now on a multi-jurisdictional grant, which is a group effort with De Pere, Brown County, Green Bay, Hobart Lawrence, and State Patrol. And we move from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and all the officers get together and patrol an area. Tomorrow night, we will be in Hobart and Lawrence. So we'll be looking for drunk drivers. The last time we were here, we had 14 officers working, and we made 6 arrests for drunk driving. It's a serious problem. Lots of deaths occur, and lots of serious accidents occur because of drunk driving, and we're trying to do what we can to stop that. We are in the process of working on a speed grant for $15,000, which will allow us to put officers on the road at an overtime rate paid by the state, so that we can enforce the speeding laws, which helps us hopefully work less accidents and hopefully less fatals as well. A card grant, which is a youth alcohol grant, where we look for large gatherings of underage people and check those areas. We also do checks in the local bars for their licensing and gas stations that sell alcohol. We put police officers in plain clothes in those areas to try and work on that issue as well, to selling to underage people. We're hoping to get a speed trailer again this year. We have one speed trailer that's in good shape. We have one that's not in very good shape, and we're hoping to replace that. And that would be equipment help or received through that grant, so we're working on that. Handheld police radios, we're working to get 2 of those. That's an issue that once the new countywide dispatch center goes into place, we're going to need new radios, so we're trying to get ahead of the game and try and get some of those through a grant, so I'm working on that as well. Property crimes, sensitive crimes, and internet crimes are becoming a daily routine for us, and investigations are piling up as we grow some of the crimes, and so therefore we're certainly getting busier. Our calls for service are up about 600 calls from 2009. School resource officer, we have one school resource officer that's working in Hemlock and Lawrence, and she has been busy. She had 39 incidents so far for the 2010-2011 year, 39 incidents, which are police incidents that she had to work in a grade school, and 28 activities that she's done with the kids over at the school, teaching, going to classes, that kind of thing. And that is about it. The only other thing is that we did in Hobart, We haven't done it in Lawrence, but we did it in Hobart. We went through and redid all the house numbering, checked all the houses, made sure everyone has house numbering in place so that we can find them when we need to, whether it be police, fire, or rescue, that we are able to identify an address and get to the house quickly, which was a major undertaking, but we got it done and it was happy with it. So, any questions for anybody? Okay. Bob and I, the fire chief, will be next. Thank you.
I'll be even a little briefer than Randy. I just found out I did this yesterday. This will be my last time to speak to you as Hobart Fire Chief. And I'd like to say it's been an honor and a privilege to do so for the last 14 years. I'll retire this summer after 30 plus years. I went from a young guy in the department to an old guy with a blink of an eye and just wonder how it happened. I'd also like to thank the board and the village staff for all their support over the years. They always came to bat for us whenever we really needed something, they were always there. But I really have to thank the firefighters for not only coming to bat for us, but for hitting some major home runs. In the last 3 years, our fire department was able to secure $250,000 in grants that we use for new breathing apparatus, new turnout gear. In these tough budget times, it was really a big deal for our department, but it also was a big deal for Hobart taxpayers. Future federal and state grants will be very hard to come by, as cuts are being made everywhere. The biggest obstacle that I see facing volunteer fire departments is recruitment and retention, and to have people available when we have our greatest shortages, which are usually daytime and weekends. We have no guarantee that anyone will show up. Recently we had 2 major fires in Hobart with over $1 million in property loss. That just so happens it happened in the evenings, and we had very good response for both those fires. The one fire, particularly the one in Windermere, I believe it started about 11 o'clock at night, and it went from 11. Guys were there all night long. Guys had to take off for work, and then we had to rekindle. So it was probably 11 o'clock the next night when it was finally wrapped up. So that was a 24-hour thing. That's a lot to ask of a volunteer fire department, especially when guys are taking off of work and donating that time. Besides those fires, like I said, we had very good turnout. And it just so happens a couple days later, we had a daytime incident for an extraction. We only had 3 people show up for that call. When I started, we had maybe 30 calls a year. Now we're running about 100 calls a year. That's all part of the growing pains as the community faces with growth. Something this board is going to have to help us find a solution to do so, and I know they will. When hopefully you call, we just hope that someone can show up. I just again want to thank you for all your support, and like I said, it's been an honor. Thank you.
Hold on, moderator.
Oh, you're on.
If I could introduce Elaine Woolman, probably have heard of her. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ron. And we asked you to be here on short notice too. Thanks for keeping me honest, everybody. Why don't I introduce now instead of Elaine? Hey, Ron, I could ask you to introduce Elaine when you're done, and I can sit down. There you go. I'd like to introduce Ron Urbanechek, and as much of a secret treasure that the fire department is, there's also another secret treasure in the village, and that is the first response team, the first responders that we have serving you. So I'd like to introduce Ron Urbanechek.
Hi, thank you. Oh, yeah. All right. So, Hobart's very lucky to have 8 first responders that actually a really seasoned group. I just counted up the years of service between the 8 of us, and it comes up to 82 years of service between 8 people. Rick and Tammy Braun, Scott Nelson, Vicki Collins, her son Brian Collins, Nate Edelbeck, and myself and my wife Linda Hermanichek. So, and we're very proud to do this. The number of calls we had over the last, in 2010, kind of equals the calls we've had previous years, a little over 200 calls. Linda and I keep track of our calls that we respond to, so we're kind of on the same track this year. We've already had like 23 calls this year that we responded on. And we go to everything from cut finger to those head-on crashes, that those deaths that Bob had talked about. And so we respond to all those things. I'd like to thank the board for the support they give us. We're very appreciative of anything that I ask for as far as radios or defibrillators or things of that sort. They're very responsive to give to us. The only other thing that I'd like to restate tonight is that we're always in need of more people, first responders. And if anybody is willing to go to a short class and join our group, we're more than welcome to have more people. We kind of spread out now pretty well between south and north. We don't have anybody really on the way south side. We have several people in the middle and a few of us in the north end. So those Highway 29 accidents we can cover pretty well in Thornberry Creek and Indian Trail. So if anybody's interested, please give the board a call and come and sign up. So that's about it. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to present Elaine Wilman.
This is the first year that we've ever spelled Ron's last name right in the program.
I was going to say that.
So after 3 years, we got you pinned down.
Thank you, Ron and Andrew, and all of you for being here tonight. It's hard for me to believe that this is my 4th annual board meeting. And my first one was in April of 2008. And the most troubling thing I was worried about the whole evening was being able to pronounce Ron Hermanichek. And so every year that memory comes back to me. I think I'm getting it now. I'm just going to run a few things by you on a few different subjects, and one of them is I just want to throw out that Hobart has grown in 10 years. Hobart has grown. We moved through a really great census process, and we have grown from 5,090, which was our official census in 2010, to 6,182 in 2010. The first 5,090 was the year 2000. We are now 6,182. What's remarkable about that? That's a 21% in the population increase. But what is really even more remarkable from my perspective as a planner and community development and economic person is that we don't have a downtown Hobart yet. We're a sleepy little bedroom community transitioning, that we really are transitioning, and we have still grown 21% in 10 years. And that doesn't include all the new families that live out in Centennial Center area, because the census was taken before they moved in. We now have 116 families living out in Centennial Center. There are, let me get my numbers here. We have, this is truly remarkable for anywhere in the state, but we have issued a total of 49 building permits for single-family homes. 38 of those were in 2010. Hobart issued 38 building permits for single-family homes last year. De Pere issued 2. Hobart's land parcels and development was 10% of the state of Wisconsin's new parcels statewide in 2010. Of those 49 building permits, 38 of those new homes are sold and occupied. I mean, that's just amazing for a year. They're wonderful homes. They're small lots. It's a very cohesive little planned neighborhood. Folks that live there are delighted to live there. And many of them work at the 2 big new businesses that are growing like topsy out there. We also have 104 multifamily units up. The last 16-unit building is not ready for occupancy yet, but we have 78 families living in the new apartments at Centennial Estates, all in a year, all last year. This coming year, we're going to be, we processed the approvals for 48 larger, more upscale apartments coming to Hobart. We're now communicating with and working with an assisted living provider, and both Centerline Machining and EMT International are in dramatic expansion mode, when Centerline has been there maybe a year and EMT hasn't even been there a year. We now have 250 employees working every day in Hobart out of Centennial Center. By the end of this year, there will be 400 or more. That's how rapidly EMT International and Centerline Machining are growing and expanding. Their business is just booming. They love it out there. Many of their employees bought the homes and live in the apartments, and they love being able to walk to work or be very near, which was the whole theme and concept of a mixed-use development project of Centennial Center. So we're really, really thrilled about that. The other piece that we've been working with our Community Development Authority, and in your program we list all the various volunteer boards and committees that our citizens serve on. We have such an engaged community. It makes a big difference to staff and all of us. Our Community Development Authority is a very good brain tank that we bounce ideas off of. And all this past year of 2010, at the same time we're moving forward on Centennial Center, we're starting to put the pieces into place, the planning pieces into place, to be ready for the DOT new bridge now on Shearing Road, or wherever that new bridge is in the southern Hobart area. We are creating a Southern Hobart Economic Development Planning Area with the assistance and input of the Community Development Authority and our Planning Commission, and input from the board and staff. All this past year we've been kind of looking at where are the new infrastructure pieces coming, where are the business parks in Ashwaubenon and Lawrence going, and what is the best area, a cohesive planning area for Hobart to be ready to capture and bring in thoughtfully in the southern Hobart area, the same way we are working with the northern Hobart area. So we have established a southern, just broad-based, Southern Hobart Economic Development Planning Area, which is essentially Fernando down to maybe Nathan, Packland, over to Overland, just a broad-based area for long-term 10, 20-year planning, and to put a few pieces in place in the coming years. We'll also be doing a couple of planned development district zones that give flexible opportunity to land users there, much like the planned development district zoning is on our Centennial Center for flexibility of land use there. So Hobart is working both the northern Hobart area and the southern Hobart area to just accommodate the job creation opportunities and the general population growth that's starting to kind of move west off of 41 and 43, and Hobart is right in that path. So those are the big pieces that we're working on in the community development area. I'm going to kind of segue into some tribal information. You probably read in the paper that Representative James Steineke is revisiting the legislation regarding the liquor license of the Oneida Tribe, and we're certainly appreciative of those efforts. We're also, many of the southern Hobart residents were very, very affected by a project of 7 generations with an incinerator biomass plant that they were going to put on Packerland Drive, just a block or so from major residential neighborhoods in Hobart, and right across the road from Ashwaubenon's very nice corporate business park and daycare center. And it was a location that became instantly controversial. A citizens group, I have this crazy spiritual principle that in God's economy, nothing negative is wasted. That project, when it landed in an inappropriate area, that felt like a negative. But out of that, it happened to land in an area where all the neighbors were engineers or PhDs or attorneys. And they jumped in the game and they said, not here. And so foreign planners and citizens in both Ashwaubenon and Hobart formed a group that is now called the Incinerator-Free Brown County, and they were able to successfully encourage the tribe to relocate, and then Mayor Jim Smith invited them over to Green Bay. I mentioned that because it's no longer in Hobart, but I also mentioned that because of the controversy, the substance of the controversy and the conversation that has gone on in Brown County, the recently passed Ashwaubenon Service Agreement with the Oneida Tribe includes a gracious statement that the tribe has included that they will not bring an incinerator or biomass project to Ashwaubenon. So that project will not come back to the Hobart neighborhood or Ashwaubenon. So I thought I'd just put that information out there. The other thing I'd like to talk about tonight, just briefly, is that very recently I was invited to a National Indian Law Conference at the Sandra Day O'Connor Law School at Arizona State University. I was invited to participate on a panel that will be discussing the impact of land going from fee to trust, the impact on local governments. I was invited by Carl Artman, who is a former Oneida tribal attorney. And Carl Artman, Mr. Artman, is also a former director of the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And I can tell you that Mr. Artman and I have 180-degree different legal and political perspectives. But the wonderful thing is that we have a mutual respect for each other, and we can communicate and dialogue in spite of disagreements and different points of view. And so I have been very appreciative of that invitation. So this time next week, I will be at the Sandra Day O'Connor Law School. And for that, I prepared a little PowerPoint presentation on fee to trust, because I'll use the analogy that almost any policy or regulation in our whole society starts with a benign intent. And if used excessively or abused, it becomes a problem. The prohibition is gone, everybody can drink. We can all drink. But in most states, when that's to excess or abuse, we've now established a 0.10 blood alcohol level, that if you choose to drink, you best not be behind the wheel. When laws and policies are put into place and then abused, that's a problem. And sort of the theme of the conversation I'm going to have, and mind you, I'm probably the only non-tribal person and non-attorney that will be there next week. I plan to be very frank and straightforward because we need to solve these problems. I believe that the Indian Reorganization Act, which established the ability of the Secretary of Interior to take lands from the state and place them into federal trust in 1934, I believe that was a benign intent. And so, Andrew, if you have that power presentation,
I'll try to, can you hear me if I just talk without the microphone? This is an early map of 1825 when the Wisconsin Territory, and there was Indian Territory and Wisconsin Territory. You can click, we're going to move through this very quickly. This is 1838, just the boundary of the 65,400 acres of the Treaty of 1838 that was made with the First Christian and Orchard Party of the New York United. That's the 65,400 acres original boundary. That increase that you just saw by 1892 was entirely allotted out under the General Allotment Act to individual tribal members, and be patented for the most part by 1892 and certainly by the 1920s. All but about 84 acres of the 65,004 was totally patented out, and the members of that Treaty of 1838, the New York, the First Christian and Orchard parties were Wisconsin citizens from 1892 until 1936, and then of course in 1924, when all American Indian Indians were citizens. In our research for the cases that Mr. Kowalkowski is going to talk to you about, in some of the historical research, we found some interesting things. And this one really caught my eye, and I'm taking it to the conference because of the definition. I'll read it to the first part. 1909 is a federal district court case that says, as the U.S. calls this, it further appears by the statutes of the state, the former Oneida Reservation has been divided into 2 townships with provisions for 2 local government. This is 102 years ago. A federal district court judge says the former reservation is now 2 townships. And from approximately 1892 until 1936, the only jurisdiction in this area was the state of Wisconsin and Brown County. Until 1908 came the village of town of Hobart, and 1910 came the town of Oneida. So there was no federal jurisdiction, only state and county and town jurisdiction for almost 40 years, 1892 to 1936. In 1936, the federal government recognized the Oneida Tribe of Indians of Wisconsin and started helping them acquire land. Oh wait, back to this one just a minute. Here's the thing that I thought was a phenomenal piece. It says, if the theory of government, and this is the best definition of feeder trust I've ever seen, if the theory of government here presented were to be adopted, we should have this anomalous situation. A quarter section occupied by a white man would be under the jurisdiction of the state, while the next quarter section occupied by an Indian allottee would fall under the federal jurisdiction. There would be 2 rules of conduct which might be entirely different, operating at the same time upon the same township according to the complexion of the inhabitants. This was 1909. Two rules of conduct which might be entirely different, operating at the same time upon the same township according to the complexion of the inhabitants. This amounts to a reductio ad absurdum. It's a Latin term. Reductio ad. That was this judge's view in 1909. He said, are you kidding? We have federal jurisdiction on this parcel and state jurisdiction on this parcel. Reductio ad absurdum. Best definition I've ever seen for feeder trust. That was 1909. Indian Reorganization Act came along in 1934 and created exactly that. Townships, every single Indian reservation in this country is located within a county, 1 or 2 counties, many within towns. And we have been struggling with this process, this problem. So getting back to the benign use of a well-intended policy, when the Indian Reorganization Act occurred and the ability of the Secretary of Interior to acquire land for the tribal governments that they were recognizing. When that land was acquired for a purpose, I consider that a benign use. When the tribe acquires a parcel because they want to build homes or schools or big jobs or have a museum or even a casino, whatever it is, when the tribe acquires some land and uses that land for the betterment of the tribal people, I don't believe there would be any objection. But when a tribe acquires a land, lets it lie fallow, just keeps acquiring land, does not use it for the benefit of the people, it becomes strategic acquisition, which truly impacts the co-located government. And there is no Indian reservation in this country that isn't also located in a county and very near towns or co-located with towns. So we have this federal jurisdiction, state jurisdiction, and there are 1,061 Hobarts in the country. If we just look at a single parcel taken from the state that tax base and pays in federal trust, will create a minimum of property tax laws, land use planning disruption, zoning conflicts, jurisdictional confusion, water and construction companies, lost business, economic development opportunities, and neighborhood estrangements. I've watched this neighborhood estrangements in many areas, and it's a sad thing because the kids all went to school together of every culture. Kids grew up together of every culture, and it was neighbors, and there just were no problems. But suddenly we have this political divisiveness escalating through feet of trust, and neighbors are uncomfortable with each other. Well, how come you didn't get this? How about this? And neighborhood estrangement happens. That's tough on any community. So, here's the strategic land acquisition. The land acquired from placement into trust or into federal trust are intended to disrupt. When land is acquired by a tribal government, whether it's this one or another one, doesn't matter. But when land is acquired by a tribal government to strategically disrupt or diminish the authority of a co-located government, that is a strategic acquisition, and the impact on the community is dramatic. Okay, next. The difference between random is acquiring parcels to serve an intended tribal purpose, and the purpose is completed. I believe all of us would support that. I believe if the Indian Reorganization Act, feed a trust process were used for exactly that purpose. We're going to acquire this land for our people. We're going to put these resources on this land for our people. I believe everybody around would applaud. I don't believe we would object to that. Strategic parcels acquired to intentionally thwart other non-tribal government activities with no tribal use accomplished on the land. Those are my two broad definitions. I support the one, I oppose the other. Examples of random feeder trusts in 1950. My technology varies. In 1950, the land acquisition was moving about like this for the United. It was quite slow, but the land that was acquired was being utilized. So we look at the next one. This is a whole 65,400 acres by 1975. And the land is being acquired a little better and being utilized. This is 1979. It doesn't really show you the land breakdown very well. But let's move to Brown Camp. This is the town of Hobart in 1990. This is half of the former reservation. And you can see where by 1990, the gaming is building up. The revenues and the ability of the tribe to do things has really ratcheted up. And this is Allegheny County. Right now, Allegheny County, the dark squares are owned by the United Tribe. Nearly half of the other half of the reservation. Here's another example of a strategic acquisition for fee land in federal trust. This is Hobart in 2008. The red are parcels that are already out of the tax base and into tax-exempt federal trust status. The blue are parcels packaged up just under 3,000 acres to be removed from the Hobart tax base and placed in the federal trust. The red is about 1,581 acres right now, and the blue is about 3,000 acres. So next slide. The Village of Hobart, 1,581 acres in federal trust, 338.59 additional acres owned in fee and paying taxes. Total 5,448 acres owned by the United Tribe in Hobart. About 25% of Hobart today. This acreage right here is paying taxes. And this acreage right here, we are objecting to every single acre going into trust. We have appealed and objected, and for the years that we object, the taxes erode. It's in our best interest to keep on objecting until we get some problems solved between co-located governments. So we will always object to any more land going into trust, particularly when the land is not being used to upgrade the quality of life for tribal members. And particularly used when it is strategic, absolutely strategic. I'll give you another example. Look back to that big Yeah, there you go. This, down here in the southern Hobart area, years ago before I came here, some of you may recall when the village was building a business industrial park. And they expended some money, about $4 million, to have an industrial park. They built a boulevard, O'Hare Boulevard up there. And then they kind of woke up to read the paper one morning that the tribe had acquired 75% of the land in that industrial park and said, we're not building anything. That was a strategic acquisition to thwart the local government. So that prompted the village to go up and buy the acreage of Centennial. The village bought the acreage of Centennial, and the tribe bought an unbuildable thing we call the spike strip to stop the village from being able to get its sewer across the Centennial. That is strategic land acquisition, not for the benefit of the tribe, but for the diminishment of the representative government here. And we are confronting that, quite frankly. The railroad is contested. The tribe claims that they own, or they own the railroad. We think differently, let our attorney go about that. The golf course has been kind of a mixed thing because we really are happy with the present owner of the golf course and the way the golf course is working. We wish them every success. We succeeded in keeping restrictive covenants on that golf course, so it must always remain a golf course and it must always stay in the tax base. Beyond that, we wish them well. That's making great use of their property, and that's creating jobs for tribal people. And we think that's a wonderful thing. We very much support the Thornberry Creek Golf Course and restaurant there in every way we can. We do treat, regarding a liquor license, we treat that liquor license the way any other liquor license is. If you owe Hobart something, you pay out to get your liquor license. So that's just the way that is. So that's just a little mini version of the presentation I'm going to be giving in Arizona. I hope I live to tell a tale. The relationship that I have with Mr. Armin, a person who vigorously disagrees with my perspectives, and we're sitting on two sides of a very difficult issue. But that mutual respect is a relationship I also have with a great number of local Oneida tribal members here. And so some of you received in your mail a very extensive spending postcard just before the elections. There are a couple of folks that would rather not speak to me, would rather I'm not here, and that enjoy personally trashing me, and so be it, they have that right. But I want you as Hobart residents to know that I have many, many tribal friends that I deeply respect, and they respect me, and we all want to solve these problems. So thank you very much.
Before Elaine goes to Arizona, we'll have her work that. If I could, we're going to finish off the programming with Ray Polakowski, the outside counsel for the village. He'd like to brief you on the current news that we have present back.
Hello, everyone. I was asked to give a brief update of some of the pending litigation that the village has, and because it is pending, I can't give you any great detail, but I want to at least give you some general background of what this dispute is about, and then where it is currently sitting in the court system. One of the things that is pending is an objection to the United Tribes application to put certain land from fee status into trust status. I think Elaine had mentioned that, and the approximate acreage is somewhere just under 3,000 acres. And the village has objected to that. There are several separate applications which consist of 1 to a handful of parcels per application. And the regional director of the Bureau of Indian Affairs has issued decisions accepting some of that land into trust. That's the very first level of decision making in this process. For those decisions which have been rendered, the village has filed an appeal to the IPIA, which is the Interior Board of Indian Appeals, as part of the Department of Interior. It's not in a regular court system, but it is an administrative judge who would make a decision if that regional director's decision to accept this amendment to trust was or was not correct. There are several other applications for which the regional director has not even rendered the initial decision, so therefore there's obviously no appeal to those yet. The village has objected on several grounds. A couple of the, I guess, the main reasons have to do with if land is placed into federal trust, it is not subject to real estate taxes, so there would be no loss of tax revenue. Another main issue has to do with jurisdiction over the trust land. Pursuant to a certain code of federal regulation, that if land is placed in trust, there is a loss of local, state, county, village jurisdiction over that parcel in terms of zoning ordinances, a pretty broad jurisdictional loss. So those are two of the main reasons why there's an objection. If, regardless of the decision from the IPIA administrative judges, either side could appeal that decision to the federal court, go to federal district court, and then the federal judge would make a decision as to whether or not that placement into trust was or was not appropriate. That bridge has not been reached at this point. There is not, as of today, a decision from the IPIA yet on those appeals, so that matter will be coming up rather shortly. For some of those initial appeals, they've been fully briefed in the statuses. We're just waiting for the decision. Another matter that's pending has to do with the Brown County Service Agreement, and this goes back a while. There was, when Brown County and the tribe entered into a service agreement, one of the provisions in there was objected to by the Village of Hobart. That provision indicated that, I believe it was 1,700 acres of the Village of Hobart would be, the policing authority would be for the United Tribal Police Force as opposed to the village. There were some objections made which resulted in some modifications to that agreement. I believe it's currently is worded that the Tribal Police Force would have primary policing jurisdiction in that area. The village objected to that. After those modifications were made, Brown County Circuit Court, Judge Hammer, had indicated that no, that agreement was valid, and that it was his decision as modified in this course. That has been appealed to the Court of Appeals. Again, this is a Wisconsin-based case, not a federal case, and I believe that issue has also been fully briefed, and a decision is hopefully forthcoming, I would think, relatively soon on that appeal. Another matter pending has to do with stormwater charges. The EPA issued some regulations that require municipalities like Hobart that operate a stormwater system to minimize the discharge of stormwater into the nation's waters, part of a pollution abatement plan. They don't want stormwater running off in ditches, streams, etc., into waterways, creating pollution. To comply with that, the village did implement a stormwater management system. As part of that system, in order to cover the cost of it, they did implement some ordinances which resulted in fees being applied to parcels. In fact, most of you probably noticed, the stormwater management fee is showing up for your parcels. The tribe, about a little over a year ago, initiated a suit against the village in federal court, saying that those fees were not owed by them on trust land because of the status that trust land has, that those could not be charged, similar to how real estate taxes cannot be charged on trust land. These are not per se real estate taxes, so one of the disputes is this the type of charge that can be made against trust land, or is it more like a regular real estate tax in which it cannot? One of the issues that came up in the very initial phase of that litigation was that, okay, even if it is owed, then it would be the United States that owes that money because they're the actual title holder to trust land. It's held for the benefit of the tribe, and title is actually the name of the United States government. So the United States was brought into the litigation by Hobart, and just recently, the court, just this week in fact, agreed with the United States that their motion to be dismissed from the lawsuit would be granted because there was not yet what is called a final agency action officially refusing to pay that money. In other words, another procedural hoop would need to be jumped through to get an official denial from the federal government to pay those fees. And once that occurs, then it can be appealed to federal court. That matter has not, as far as the merits of that case, there has been no ruling yet on the merits. And by the merits, I mean whether or not it's owed at all, either by the tribe or the federal government. The federal judges, Judge Riesbach here, has not ruled on that particular issue. The only ruling to date has to do with the procedural posture of the United States being part of the litigation as of right now versus being brought in after they officially make a determination that they don't know what they're not going to pay either. So that's where that one currently stands. One thing on the stormwater matter, again, in terms of current status, as a result of the decision relating to the United States, it has triggered some earlier scheduling orders, which indicate that I think it will be 60 days, some briefing on the main issue has to occur, and then there's an opportunity to have a response brief. So we're probably talking, a few months out where we might get another decision on the actual merits of that case, at least as it relates to the tribe part. As far as it relates to the United States part, there would be a need to seek final agency determination if that's what the board so decides to do, and then thereafter there could be another aspect of this case relating to the United States. So that's kind of the current status of the pending litigation. As far as other legal matters, there really isn't anything other than some kind of routine matters in terms of occasionally something comes up with maybe an ordinance or having to do with maybe if another developer is looking at doing something Centennial Center or elsewhere, there may be some review of those things. But as far as any more major or long-term type of legal matters, I think that's about it. Thank you.
I'd be remiss if I didn't give a commercial for an email listserv that we have. We try to do everything we can to engage the residents. I was so bold as to recommend Facebook to the board, and they said maybe in a year. But I do send out periodic updates to an email listserv. All you have to do to get on that is email me and say, sign me up. We send meeting agendas, meeting minutes. I believe a lot of the information from the committee work and the water and sewer analysis that will be continuing, and the project updates. All of the information, well, I'll back up. A couple evenings ago at the Village Hall, we had a DOT public information meeting. There's a lot of activity that will affect a lot of you in Northern Hobart on State 29. And they have allowed us to kind of have some of their exhibits for the evening. So once we break up here, the village staff and the village board will be here. We can kind of answer questions you have. We can kind of mingle, maybe commiserate over some of the construction headaches that we're going to have. But that's the plan for now. So we're going to break up. I would also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Mary Smith in the back. Mary's going to hate me for this because she usually hates me when I remind her, but Mary's been with the village since the year I was born. I know she's going to kill me. If you really I'll have to wear my green shirt now in public again, right, Mary?
Good big Ron's here.
But I would like to acknowledge Mary. Mary's in her 27th year with the village, so she's our longest tenured employee here. So thank you. So we're going to break up. We're going to congregate in various parts of the room, the gymnasium, and with that, it's up to you guys. What do you think? Do you have a question you'd like to ask?
Yes, on the sewer, the home is not connected to sewer and no septic. Sure. Are these fees to be broadcast off the whole list?
No. That would be just treaty charges for public sewer, yes.
Question also on the Indian situation. You mentioned that there are 1,060 other Hobarts across the United States. Scale of 1 to 10, obviously with fighting, I support our efforts for that direction. How are the other 1,059 handling all this?
In the southwestern states, there are large federal land bases and reservations, and deed of trust is not merely the issue or problem. In California and the northwestern states and the northeastern states and our Great Lakes states, deed of trust is not a problem with some reservations and a big problem with others. It truly depends on the decisions the tribal governments make as to how to utilize deed of trust. Some utilize it very little. Some have an adequate land base and use it very little. Some use it as is used here. And it does create problems. So there's not a, when I say there's 1,061 net figures in the U.S. Census Bureau, that includes counties and municipalities and townships. I guess because of the extent that this tribe has acquired land and continues to do so, and yet the land is not being used, and the land acquisitions seem quite obviously strategic, that I would call our scenario sort of the poster child for the excess of deed of trust. That's one of the reasons I came here. I have always thought, and the experiences I've had and information I've learned about Indian tribes, the United Tribe is by far one of the most aggressive, progressive, really smartest, sharpest, and most respected tribe in the country. It truly is. And this local government, our 5 elected officials, are absolutely 5-0 dedicated to preserving and protecting this representative government. So one of the reasons I came here, and it's still the reason I'm here, is I thought this problem has to be solved. What better zip codes than right here with the best and brightest of Indian tribes and those dedicated local governments? Let's come to the table and solve it and create a model that works across the country. That's why I came here. I came here in January of 2008. The response to my coming here was in February of 2008. The United Tribe passed a resolution that said we're not communicating with Hobart anymore. Period. And they pay Hobart when court ordered only, or when they need something only. They don't treat the other neighboring communities that way, but they treat us that way. I find that really unfortunate because we could be at the table. We could be at the center of the national conversation, which is really difficult these days, with some solutions. But the tribe would have to rescind that resolution, and those who trashed me would have to start talking with us. And I think that day is going to come very soon. There's elections coming up in the United Tribe, and I think there are a number of tribal members who really are tired of this baloney too. And I think we're going to get some progress pretty soon.
Mr. Treasurer, like real response. Can I speak?
Do you have a question, Bill?
Well, I have many. As I listen to the presentation this evening, I'm encouraged by what it is that we're doing as a village. As a taxpayer, I'm saying we, because my money is being used not only for the lawsuits, but also for the development. But I think, as I listen to this, I'm finding things that are being very, very misrepresented. I mean, let's consider, for instance, the United Tribe was originally in New York State, that's been said. We were one of the first allies of the United States. Our lands in New York State were going to be protected forever. Our 5.5 million acres. By the 1820s, everything had been taken from us, and we were forced to come to Wisconsin. We entered into treaties here in Wisconsin. The treaty that established this reservation was in 1838, 10 years before Wisconsin entered the Union. The majority of the Oneidas who came here
were Christianized while they were in New York State, and they were Episcopalian. So when they arrived here, they named Hobart for the Right Reverend Episcopal Bishop Hobart from New York, who was very close to them. It's been said that the tribe, like in 1950, wasn't buying up the land. That's very clear. I got out of the Marine Corps in 1970. I came back home, and the tribe had a 3-figure annual budget. So no, the tribe was not buying a lot of land. The tribe were the destitute Indians out on the edge of Green Bay. I think the tribe always having had the governance capacity, but not having the resources to implement it, was in the very desperate situation in which it found us. In 1934, with the Indian Reorganization Act, that act was put in place largely because the policies had so failed Indian country that America needed to do something to try to make it right. And the laws which Ms. Woolman cited were essentially decisions that predated other decisions that corrected the problems that were associated with them. Now, when the tribe began to move forward and did start to generate revenue, what it did was to engage with local governments. We entered into service agreements with local governments, and we did so before there was a requirement to do so, but in recognition of the fact that local governments provide some services from which the tribes benefit. Tommy Thompson picked up on that and made it a requirement of all tribes in Wisconsin as a condition of their compact. So all tribes in the state had compacts with local governments in their areas. The situation today is that the compact, the most recent compact that was negotiated, no longer requires that there be compacts with local governments, service agreements with local governments, but rather says that if local governments and tribal governments can work together, tribes are able to keep resources here for the benefit of providing services. So those benefits are available to us, except Hobart has said, no, we don't need roads money. No, we don't want that, we don't want the other. And so the tribe has taken the position that if we're not being recognized, there is a very fundamental legal question. If the tribe that is recognized by the United States, that is recognized by the state, that is recognized by all the other governments around us, is not a government, as has been said by the village, or we're a single-purpose race-based foreign government.
Bill, do you have a question? Because you're really misconstruing.
No, I think I'm representing what's accurate. I think we heard
have a
what
question.
misconstrued.
Do you have a question, sir? This is a question and answer session.
All right.
So do you have a question that we can answer for you? Maybe about village services or being a...
I guess I would ask if perhaps we could set aside a forum specifically for the opportunity to discuss what is real, so that people could hear both sides and understand, so they're not victimized by he said, she said. Because I think that's a critical piece in moving us forward, because there are a lot of things that are contributing to misunderstanding.
Thank you, Bill. Yes, sir.
We have a loan restriction on our land with bankers that run through it. We'll be turning a new road up very shortly.
I don't think there's any restriction on that road or anything that stops semi-traffic comment.
Chief, there is no restrictions on county roads. They're built to standards where they should be able to handle any load that's legal. So county will never put a weight limit on the road. As for the bad bridge, other than that, the road is built well enough that should handle a legal load.
As far as speeding, that's that.
Yes, sir.
I have a question relative to reading in the paper where the village is going to have to pay the electrical expenses for the lighting on the roundabout on J. My question is, why?
I don't know if I have an answer right off the top of my head as to why we're not allowed.
Well, DOT required DOT required X amount of lights on a roundabout, and DOT or county, it's actually should be two county roads intersecting, but county or DOT will not pay the electrical bill for those municipalities.
That's throughout the county, though. I misunderstood your question, but that's throughout the county. The county does not have a street lighting program.
I understand.
The host communities do pay for the utilities of that.
I understand. Who's paying for the lighting on the roundabout on 172?
That'd be a state highway.
Oh, is this a state project, or is this a county project, or a village project?
That's a state project. It's part of the 41 major project.
That's my point. I don't see why the village should pay $4,000+ a year to light a roundabout that is owned by the county and the state. Now, the state tried to do the same thing when we built the Tower Drive Bridge. And for years, there were no lights on Tower Drive Bridge because the city refused to pay for them. Because of the public safety issue, some years later, the state did put up the lights, and they do pay for the electrical. And the same thing should apply here. I was on a highway commission at that time, and it was a hell of an argument. But when it came down, push came to shove, the state backed down and paid for the lighting on the Tower Drive Bridge. And they should do the same damn thing for every roundabout that's on a state or county highway.
I would say that I think that was the board's position. And we did.
And I spoke to the board some months ago about that issue, and I take exception to it. I don't think it's our responsibility.
I don't think they thought it was our responsibility either. I don't mean to speak on behalf of the board. But looking around, the county, that is standard operating procedure because of the intersection of two county roads. It's a state project, although there'll be county roads. So we entered into a state municipal agreement, and fortunately or unfortunately, we're paying the electric cost of the site.
What we were able to do was cut the number down. We guys but we're still looking to build.
Do you realize that project is going to be there for 75 years, and we're going to be paying $4,000+ for 75 years for lights on that damn thing?
I do know that.
Excuse my French.
I can say that we completely agree with your position. Any other questions that potentially can't be answered in maybe a smaller group setting or one-on-one with any of the staff? We have the village's management team here representing each one of the departments. Specific questions? Let us know.
Thank you.